In this video, we are going to rank the top 10 best feats and showing of skill as well as talent within the entire series, and also raw power. Let's get straight into it. Beforehand though, I want to mention that some of the feats didn't fit into a top 10 list, so I want to mention them at the end of the video as noteworthy mentions which should not go unnoticed. Let's get into it. Top 10. Gannicus easily defeating a gladiator in the arena in the first episode. He casually, after receiving a simple wound, put his swords down and asserted his dominance, whilst being a showman at the same time. He then casually, whilst playing in the arena, beat and killed easily the gladiator in the first episode. In any top list, this is always something needing to be mentioned. Gannicus was directly known and shown as a champion from episode 1, and this fight truly showed this. Of course, there were other fights that did so as well. However, other characters, whether it's Animes, Crixus or Spartacus, were not presented as already in champion form, and with a feat of instantly defeating a gladiator with such ease within any first episode, and being a showman at the same time as Gannicus. Gannicus really is a once in a lifetime gladiator for his time. Top 9. Spartacus surviving his execution. Spartacus was barely anywhere near his true capacity within the first episode of Blood and Sand, yet he still survived his match against multiple gladiators and was able to kill them all. Even the crowd was surprised of all the other gladiators, as they had expected it to be a 1 versus 1 match and not 5 guys on Spartacus alone. Glaba wanted to ensure that execution is 100% done, but he still failed. One of whom Spartacus killed was even mentioned in the Spartacus comic and has a backstory. That guy was considered the best man of Salonius at that time, but he wasn't, as it seemed like, if a barely full-fledged Spartacus was able to kill him. Also, comparatively, that guy was nowhere near as strong as Salonius' future strongest champion, Kerberos, whom even Gannicus struggled with and whom took Gannicus and Crixus at the same time. Top 8. Spartacus beating Crixus in the test, and actually winning the mark of the Brotherhood. This was kind of a super move because Spartacus was able to catch him off guard with the band beneath Crixus and drop him down, but it was remarkable regardless, and already showed that Spartacus would grow into a champion in the near future. If not for Bariaris, Crixus would have been finished off by Spartacus as he had intended to in the first place. Top 7. Crixus beating Pericles after being mortally wounded. He barely had any training and was able to beat him in a fair and square fight, even though Crixus was really rusty regarding his skills at that time. Pericles was the former best champion of Pompeii, after all, though needless to say, a prime Crixus or a Spartacus would have zero problems to kill this guy, and would even toy with him. Nonetheless, Crixus was long out of his true form because of his injuries of the post-Theocles fight and no training whatsoever up to this fight, and Pericles was a champion as said after all, just a champion beaten by a half-broken Crixus. Top 6. Crixus beating Octis with very little training. Octis was a mediocre fighter, but Crixus was able to beat a seasoned gladiator with pure skill in the end, as shown in Gods of the Arena, and that was a sight to behold. One would have not expected that Crixus beats a years-long seasoned gladiator so short in training. Even Barca was surprised. Nobody thought that Crixus would win, as newcomers are usually thought of as either dying because of the heat sent to the pits of the underworld or other factors such as not enough training for the battle. Yet Crixus disproved them and rightfully earned his place within the Ludus. Top 5. Spartacus and Animes fighting in the pits of the underworld. Both of these champions fought in the pits of the underworld and even survived and rose to champions. This place has no rules, and for Spartacus as well as Animes to have fought in such vicious and treacherous places and come out alive is truly something that always needs to be mentioned. Spartacus even struggled to let himself be fucking killed by the other guy, and even whilst trying not to fight back as agreed with Bariaris, he saved Bariaris' life easily after killing the other guy mercilessly. On top of all of that, if this is not impressive to you, I don't know what is. Hell, Animes was twice in the pits of the underworld and struggled to be killed because he was so skilled. He wanted to die in the pits, that's why he returned there to begin with in vengeance and did not turn to the rebellion and Spartacus. Even in his younger days, he was able to survive the pits of the underworld and defeat opponents much larger than himself. Top 4. Gannic is fighting blindfolded. This dude is basically child's play for the god of the arena, but even with a blindfold he lost to fucking Gannicus. And in their fight, you could see how Gannicus was easily able to predict and repel multiple attacks of him and counter him, before killing him completely. This was one of the best displays of pure strength and raw power I've ever seen within the entire series. Almost nothing really comes close regarding the skill criteria. Truly remarkable. Top 3. Spartacus defeating Theocles and actually becoming champion of Capua. Spartacus and Crixus fought together for most of the time, and thanks to Crixus' help, Spartacus was able to take down the Shadow of Death and ultimately become his true self. He accepted his fate and rose as the new champion. I would actually rank this higher, but there was one another fight in which I place more value into than the one with Theocles, just because it was not a true 1 versus 1 with Spartacus and Theocles, as he would have lost if not for Crixus and the helmet. Spartacus did kill him in fact, yes, but that was because of Crixus, otherwise Spartacus would have been obviously defeated by Theocles at this point. Yet even a barely trained Spartacus already fought the Shadow of Death head-on alone for quite some time, before being ultimately overpowered alone. Once Spartacus killed the Shadow of Death, he truly became Spartacus after accepting his fate. Top 2. Gannicus and Spartacus fight with the Egyptian. First off, Spartacus easily deflected the Egyptian with one sword and barely any armor, and easily pushed him down, winning the fight and killing him if not for the soldiers. What's most impressive here is that Spartacus had never fought the Egyptian before, whereas the others had, and still deflected and countered his 2 daggers with his one sword at the time, truly showing what kind of a beast Spartacus can be. Followed, Gannicus in rage was able to take down the Egyptian with the help of Animes after Animes injured the Egyptian. Gannicus in rage mode is something nobody should have ever fallen victim to. Something needing to be mentioned during the Egyptians' period as a villain is that, as I said, the others already had pre-fights with the Egyptians such as Animes as well as Gannicus, whereas Spartacus had never encountered him nor his fighting style ever before, and still was able to chop him pretty easily. Top 1. Gannicus killing Kerberos and surviving the arena. Why is this the top 1? Okay, first off, Gannicus and Crixus had fought together against this beast of a man. Basically a watered down version of Theocles, who would easily tank hits and could if he wanted to. However, Crixus was kicked out and saved by Gannicus, as Kerberos would have sliced him up like a cake, and then it truly became a 1 versus 1 between Gannicus and the man thrice his size. Gannicus took him down in true hand-to-hand combat, and actually killed him, and survived this Royal Rumble, never seen in the series before. If this is not enough, he was the only gladiator to win his freedom within the sands of the arena, and this truly marked him as the god of the arena he's always praised as. Aside of those, noteworthy feats are Spartacus easily besting the Romans and Crassus in the end, and also countering his super move while staring him straight into the eyes. Crassus beating Hilaris, a former champion, though only thanks to his super move, needing to be mentioned. I personally don't think that Crassus is near in skill to Hilaris, even though he killed him, but that was as said for the super move. Anyways, Gannicus and Spartacus in their 1 versus 1 bout. Anime is surviving Theocles. Anime is easily besting Crixus and Spartacus in their sparring bout. The Egyptian beating almost every single champion. Now, there is something I want to mention as a finisher for this video about Animes versus Theocles. I would like to add something. When watching only the show, you miss out on almost the entire fight and backstory and its meaning between the Shadow and Animes. Animes was not able to give Theocles any serious injuries and serious way of defeating him once and for all. Animes was able to survive for a very long time, that is true, and an achievement on its own, but Animes was totally at the mercy of Theocles for almost the entire duration of their fight. In the comic, you can even see Animeus' face of desperation and surprise of Theocles not dying. Hell, Theocles even had a sword stuck in his shoulder, which he said for Animeus to take out, which shocked Animeus before the battle was declared a draw. Theocles basically saw his own mother within the face of Melita, Animeus' wife, and started to respect Animeus for surviving so long, as well as after seeing his own mother within the crowd, sparing him and his life. This is basically how I would rank the top 10 list. Of course, you are free to write your own top 10 list within the comments below, and I will of course have a read on it. And everybody's opinion might differ, and this is not an indefinite list of the top 10 feats. Everybody's opinion is different, and some might disagree where the other sees the light, you know.